Hi everyone, I'm Monique with Open Gate Quilts, and today I'm going to show you the January 2021 subscription box. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's in the box, and then I'm going to do a few demos for you. As always, you're going to get a letter that tells you exactly what's in the box and some references to colors, to what fabric line, all that kind of thing is included in here. And it does have a reference also to the video, which I will also send you as well. The first thing that I'm going to show you is the Shades of Jello quilt block. Actually, it's a little wall hanging. And what you get in it is all the fabric to make the little quilt top and the binding, and it is 27-inch square. And I go through all the instructions. You get full color instructions, all the cutting instructions, and as well as all the fabric for that. So that's your first project. Your second project is a little pin cushion. And here is the example of the pin cushion. With the pin cushion, I give you two different options. I give you a simple option or a beginner option, and I give you a more intermediate option. This is the intermediate option. Why do I give you two? Reason is that these pieces are kind of small, so if this is your first paper piecing project, it could get kind of tiny. So the other one is more of a rectangle in here, and you still have some paper piecing to do, but it's a good way to learn. And I just made it into this cute little pin cushion. I'm going to show you how to do the paper piecing. And one of the reasons I chose paper piecing as a project is, remember that survey that you guys all did? That told me that several people were interested in doing some paper piecing and learning how. So that's where this one came from. With the paper piecing, you also get a add a quarter ruler, which is essential for paper piecing, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So you get a 6-inch add a quarter ruler. They're awesome. You will love that. Not only do I give you the instructions, all the paper piecing, I'm also giving you some crushed walnut shells to stuff it with. And this is actually really nice because it won't dull your pins, and it's a lot lighter weight than sand. And so this is also included in there. The only thing is, remember, it's nuts. So if you're allergic to them, you might want to not play around with those. The other thing that I have included in here is the notion of the month. And the notions of the month are something that I think works really cool, that I'm excited about, that I want you guys to try. And I like to give you a little sampling. This one here is called a Bobbin Buddy. And what you do is you put this end in your spool of thread, and you put your bobbin around here, and it sits right in there, so you have your bobbin and your thread all put together. So that is included. And then of course you do get your Aurifil thread, and this is a coordinating thread that goes with your project, as well as a new pattern. This new pattern is actually redone pattern of mine that I did for Craftsy, but I redid it in Flower and Vine, and so that is your your pattern that you get with your subscription box. So again, thank you for subscribing to the box, and I am going to show you some tips on how to put the projects together. So one of the projects that I have included is called Shades of Jello, and this is the quilt that I'm going to show you. I'm just going to give you some tips on. This one here is done by blocks. So if I look here, this is my block. And what I do is I add to the block from the biggest going down to the smallest, and it's all done strip piecing, so it's actually pretty simple. The biggest thing that you really need to be careful of is that you need to have a consistent 1/4 inch seam. always want to make sure, because there's a lot of seams in this middle part here, and if you don't have a consistent 1/4 inch seam, what's going to happen is it's going to get off. So just be careful, have a good 1/4 inch seam, and it will come together nicely. You have enough fabric to make this, including the borders and the binding, and the backing is not included, but there is, if you miscut or need some extra, I do have most of these fabrics, so just let me know, because sometimes you might get off a little bit. So anyway, this is the shades of Jello. The second project, which I really want to show you how to do, is the paper piecing pincushion. One of the things about paper piecing is that it is a little bit confusing because you are not actually sewing on your fabrics, or you're sewing on your fabric side. You're not sewing on excuse me, I'm going to start that again. I can just cut it off when I started. Okay. All right. So the at-home pincushion is paper pieced. And like I had mentioned earlier, you get 2 different options. You can do the beginner or you can do the intermediate. If you are interested in doing the intermediate, that's fine. With the intermediate, the nice thing about it is that it's a good way to try it if you've already done some paper piecing and you want to learn a little more, do some smaller pieces. If you're just beginning, just start with the smaller one, or excuse me, the beginner one, and it'll go a little easier for you. You do get both your fabrics. You get your red and your light, and then you also get a backing piece and 2 pieces of just plain fabric. Some are muslin, some are this white. The reason I include that in there is so that the walnut shells don't come through, and it has a nice backing to it. So those are included, and it tells you in the instructions how to cut all your pieces. But I really want to get into the paper piecing and how we do that. With paper piecing, it can be confusing because it's the reverse of what you actually do. So if you look at this particular one, the pattern shows me that the window is on the left side, whereas here the window is on the right side. That's because the foundation is on the back. And let's get started and I'll show you what I mean. So here I have my big piece, and what I'll do is I'm going to lay this so that it is, I've got the right side facing up, and then my first piece I add, and I actually have it on the wrong side, so I'm going to just put it on the other side. The first piece I have is number 2. So you're going to start 1 and 2. You actually sew on the line between 1 and 2. You don't sew anywhere else, just on the line, and exactly on the line. You don't want to go farther or on either end. So I put this one right side up, and I make sure that it's just kind of covering it. Then I'm going to take my light, and what I'll do is I'm going to put it here so my right sides are together, and then I'm going to pin it. And the first piece is always the hardest one because you want to get it so that you are kind of right on my line here, and it actually goes on top of the other piece. So you think it's going to be here, you sew here and it flips. So I put a pin on my line. I'm going to push it out and make sure it goes out to there so we're in good shape. So what I'll do is I'm going to take those pins out because I'm going to actually sew, keep it where it is, and I'm going to sew, like I said, between 1 and 2. When you sew, you want to make sure that you put your stitch length down to about 1.5 and stitch on there. The reason you want to do that is it perforates the seam and it helps the paper for when you have to pull it out. So I'm going to put a small stitch length and I'm going to sew that right on that line. And like I said, I'm not going to be before or after it. It helps if I turn the machine on. Take my pin out so I don't run over it. Okay, so I'm going to take it out and I'm going to cut it right down there. Right. Then what I'll do is I'm going to push it over and make sure that it covers my piece, which it does. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to use your add a quarter and you're going to go from the paper side and fold this down, take your add a quarter ruler and trim that excess fabric off. And then when you put it back here, you've got your first piece on. You also use the add a quarter ruler when you're doing your next piece. And this is where I gotta make sure I got my, don't throw your paper, this little cardboard piece that you have out, because it helps you guide your seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cardboard and I'm going to put it, first I'm going to fold it here, and I'm going to put it right along that seam between 1 and 3, because 3 is next, and I'm going to press it just by my hand and then trim that excess. So basically what it's doing is it's trimming it to a 1/4 inch seam. I take that back here, take my next piece, and this makes it so much easier because now all you have to do is you have to line this up so that your edges fit together. Here, I'm going to get some pins and I'm going to pin from this side. I'll make it a little easier. And pin here. And again, I'm going to sew right on that line there. Okay, so once I have this sewn, then what I'll do is I'll press it. Again, my 1/4 inch is already there because I used the add a quarter ruler. And then we're just going to do the same thing for the next one. You're going to line this up. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4. And line this up here, fold this over, and trim that off. And then I'll add my next piece on. And as you can see, I'm starting to get my little house. So once I have the house done, then I'll take the paper off. So don't forget to take the paper off. And you're going to take your backing and your top. I'm going to lay this together, sew this around. Actually, I take this one here too. So we got right sides together. Then this goes on this side. Sew around, leave about a 2-inch opening. Turn it inside out, so now you've got your pretty on the outside. Put your crushed walnuts in there, stitch it up, and you've got your little pin cushion. So we've got the pin cushion, our shades of our Jello, and next month I'm coming up with some other really cool stuff. So hope you enjoyed making these. Hope you enjoy making these things, and thank you again for joining our subscription box, and we'll see you next month. Bye.